What if I told you by the end of this year, AI might surpass human intelligence and become AGI?
What if you told me that, huh? Well, you're the scientist and I'm not. So this is Brian Wong. This is Randy Kirk. And Brian, apparently you've been listening to Diomedes or somebody out there who's been predicting forever that we are going to get to this spot. And now you're thinking maybe it's coming, huh?
Yeah. So we're going to explore the rapid advances in AI, tackle whether you should fear it, and discuss its impact on your jobs and the world. So let's dive in.
Okay, let's take a look.
So AI is already making mind-blowing video. So last year with ChatGPT, we had the text breakthroughs where you could give you all kinds of like writing articles, even whole books. But here we have a liquid man walking through an art gallery with the great masterpieces of art. So that's obviously a huge difference where we were. So progress is very fast.
Very
We
fast.
have 5 slides kind of showing where we are and how I define getting to human or beyond.
Okay.
So recently we had Claude 3 introduced. That was like a few days ago. And that's from Anthropic, one of the competing companies for general intelligence and artificial intelligence. The leader has been OpenAI with GPT-4, which you see in the right column. And so you can see that this progress has been made in these categories between GPT-4 from last year to Claude, another company this year. But we're still waiting for GPT-5, the one from the OpenAI leader, because it took Claude and Anthropic a year to catch up. So they have some scores that are ahead. So undergraduate, they're around 86%, 87%. Graduate at 50%. Many other things in the 90s. Grade school math, other things. Coding, 85. And so math is where they have some weakness, advanced math, and then also the graduate level.
Right, right.
So for me, I'm defining AGI as when we get to 90 to 100% scores for all subjects, math, graduate, expert, everything. So it's a very clear, precise definition because that's what they're using to test it, right?
And Brian, one of the things that people talk about is this hallucination aspect or getting things wrong, as well as being able to do things at a certain level. What percentage of the time do humans hallucinate or get things wrong? And will we be able to do a KPI on that as well?
Well, we know famously there's politicians who are misremembering things. So it's not uncommon. I even make some mistakes, where I misremember things.
Of course.
But the hallucinations I would akin to more like um, dreams or just making up a story entirely.
Right.
So the issue is that they're taking all data, the entire internet, and other data sources, and it's being compressed and not understood. It becomes a pattern
Right.
within the system, which then it approximates intelligence. But what they have to do is they're looking at all the words, looking at all the pictures, and then trying to say something's missing. Let me predict the next thing. In the word case, it's easy. What is the next word?
Mm-hmm.
But predicting the next word is hugely difficult
Right.
because you have to understand what the topic is, math, history, other things. So that's where it's learning all this stuff in order to predict, but it's not really learning.
Right.
It's only got structures inside. So then when the predictions go wrong, that's where the hallucinations come in. That's where it's like trying to predict, but it's kind of got the rhyme of what should have happened, but then it starts just predicting made up stuff and it just keeps going. It
Right.
goes off track and then it just keeps on going.
Right.
So it's like I was to believe some theory, and then it's wrong, and I just keep building upon it.
Right.
So they want to target getting hallucinations below 10%.
Okay.
So it's significant. It's like over 1 in 10 right now.
Right.
So that's what goes to my definition of super intelligence.
Okay.
Getting 100% in everything and getting hallucinations below 1 in 1,000.
Wow.
So it'd be like if you do a lot of error correction, you'd have like one system checking its own work 100 times and seeing if that problem stays. And we
Wow.
need to do other things to kind of like shake things up. Nobel Prize level work monthly. We have done some leading edge math work, solved
Yes.
a multi-year, like a grand challenge thing, something that's been sitting out there for 20 years, and the AI helped to solve that. But it's not as big as coming a grand unification theory of physics, unifying gravity with quantum mechanics, right? That's a
Or,
really big one, 100 years,
or for instance, going to the next level on LK99, which we did a nice video on the other day.
That's right. So the other part where I say super intelligence is it's helping coding now. We'll discuss that more. It also would, if it can self-upgrade, because that would be the issue of if it starts self-improving itself and getting faster and faster, then we get to a certain point, then we have this takeoff point where it just goes to God mode.
Right.
So I have those defined here as super intelligence.
Okay.
So going back to those metrics that they're using, you can see it's in art and design, business, science, health and medicine, technology, and it's really good at understanding documents and stuff. So it's like a wide range of capabilities that we're talking about, which goes to the general aspect of the word, artificial general
Yeah.
intelligence. If I
Right.
can do a broad category. So lastly, I'm going to kind of predict, and that's what other experts are doing, is predict where does this go. So I'm saying GPT-5 gets into the 90s on most everything, except maybe math and graduate level work, which are more at the 50, 60% level. I'm saying they get a 20% bump. The
Mm-hmm.
reason that I give them a better score in math in a prediction is there's something called Q star. There was a leaked thing a few months ago where there was some algorithm where the rumor was it greatly improved math capabilities for these models. Because these models have a problem with math. It can still do it,
Yeah.
but not as good as it does everything else.
Gotcha.
So if Q star is correct, then they make big leaps with math capability. But I think it's still another year or two, maybe 3, to get to that kind of 100% score on everything.
I see. Okay.
But we don't know. A lot of money is being thrown at this. We'll see how fast it goes.
Right. Right.
So, so that's basically where we are at the current state of the art. Just to summarize, here's where we are and where I'm expecting things to go. And other people are expecting other progress, but it's horse race handicappers trying to say, here's what's happened, here's where we think is going to happen, but it's all new. So the other thing is that we have to get evolution from knowledge to action, the
Okay.
role of AI agents. So the emergence of AI agents is a transition from passive knowledge, all the knowledge of the internet, but condensed and able to query it, to active participation where it can do tasks and projects across education, medicine, business, all these things.
So would
So
that
we have
be,
that in a crude form now, but it needs to get far, far better. You had a question.
so is that would basically mean applications, um, software setups where a business could use them, things of that nature?
Right. It could be like, make me a business plan and then figure out what you can execute on AI. You can start setting up the email servers, set up the website, because those would be digital things. It wouldn't even have to get a physical body to do those things, right? It could work with programming interfaces. Currently you already have things where it's calling out to programming interfaces and say, make me a reservation at a restaurant.
Right.
So it can do certain actions. But we're talking about more
Of
complicated. actions.
Mhm.
And like a list of 100 things for making YouTube video, editing them up, doing that, like take out all the pauses, make some better graphics, you know, instead we have to ask it, make the graphic, make the video, but we have to put it together. So making the projects happen would be the agent part.
Right.
Do my taxes,
Right.
collect all the financial information, do my accounting, right? It's like do things. Don't
Right.
just tell me about accounting,
Yeah. Do it.
do
Yeah.
it. So go from all knowing to all doing.
Right.
So and then it becomes integrated with virtual agents or robots, like Mr. Smith in the Matrix, and physical human-like robots, which we'll discuss in a later video. It's showing promise in a wide range of tasks, and it could reshape what we have to do. And what we have to do to replace all jobs would be 20,000 job tasks and 1,000 jobs. That's
Okay.
what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says,
Okay.
right? So right now, we're only doing a few, which I'm going to discuss where we are with the current applications and productivity enhancement.
Okay.
So from call centers, which have been targeted a lot of time with robocalling and stuff like that, you go to also medical diagnosis and screening. So, but there's other things in between. So 15 million call center jobs are at risk globally. And there was a recent company that announced that they could do it like fractions of a penny instead of $1 per answered call.
Right.
And they could look at replacing 700 humans right away. So this is definitely happening right now. And then the medical screening is where you have the data for all the x-rays, all the MRIs, that the radiologists are high risk of being replaced because
Right.
the AI can look at 1 million x-rays and can learn and is performing better than radiologists.
Mm-hmm.
So the other aspect is productivity improvement. So besides replacement, you're improving. So then we've seen that programmers can be 2 times, maybe 3 times better. Again, tough to measure.
Right.
Some say it's only 50%, but it's improved. The programmers can get code. They can say, tell me how to distribute load on my heavy traffic website. And it could then give you the code to do that.
Right.
And the other time, George Hotz asked it, make the Q-star algorithm in Python and let me implement it. And he did run it. So if you have the right question, you can get the right answer, and you have to be able to check the answer.
Yes.
So
Well,
it is boosting productivity there.
as you point out, it's all about the prompts. There's now classes and articles and even apps that are being written in order to get people to be able to prompt better, because in this world it's going to be all about the question you ask and the follow-up question, and the follow-up question is how you get the great results.
Right. And that goes to if agents were there, they could help you with prompts,
Right.
Understand what you need.
Right.
So the more active it is. Right now, it's all the knowledge of the internet, but if I don't know what to look for, I still can't do anything. So let's look at the time frame for where things are happening. So big tech, Amazon, Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, everyone has to do this thing, has to upgrade over 10,000 data centers.
Wow.
There's over 10,000 data centers now, like we've seen these pictures of one from Amazon, and then the inside with millions of machines, et cetera, like that. They have not all been converted to work on AI. They're currently doing all the cloud business, which is making them, $1 trillion.
Right.
But they're going to be converted to AI because they'll be even more productive and more valuable. So 10,000 to be converted, and you keep putting in better and better chips and systems inside the same facilities. But then you probably have to build even 10 times more, like 100,000, in order to handle the massive workload that we have. So this goes to the time frame issue, is that building all this out and also building the power to power all the computers, which could mean 3 times more electricity or 5 times more electricity, that will take like 20 years. To just convert the data centers, maybe 5, and then to build the new ones, another 15.
Wow.
Other things also take time because when a historical example is that, and this is only for the um, cognitive, you know, thinking type applications. If I have to replace human labor, then I would have to make billions of robots in order to do that. So those are huge tasks. Some examples of this kind of thing were the Apple iPhone when it was introduced in 2007, clearly superior to the Nokia flip phones. Nokia flip phones were the dominant thing then. But it took until 2012, 5 years later, to have Apple sell more phones than Nokia. Apple's already making phones or making iTunes or iPods and that kind of thing. But then they had to start making the phones, and then Takeover took 5 years.
Right.
And for the internet, it was developed. We had the dot-com period where things were all the money going into internet in the 1990s. But it took, 10, 15 years before Amazon became fully dominant.
Right.
Google search became the thing. It was all incorporated into business. All the offices were doing it for productivity. It takes time.
Right.
Right. Even though it's good and better. China's manufacturing. 1970s, they opened up the economy. There's a billion people, but it takes 30 years for them to pass the United States in manufacturing. Right.
Yeah.
So the world takes time to change, even when it's better. But you want to be early because the people who are early on the internet, iPhone, China, companies that were early, then they win. So that goes to the economic implications, strategic responses. So as we said, this parallels historic shifts. And the main thing is not just the examples of it, but what was changing. If you go from scarce to abundant, scarce information, relatively scarce, because obviously a lot of information, but we're getting even more. So you get even more abundant answers and that kind of thing, then the abundant thing becomes cheaper, right? Like we had the printing press. Before you just had the Bible, and then you had books, and then libraries of information, and those who had power before didn't, or shifted away to other things, and more money is being made, and the overall pie gets grown. For the internet and e-commerce, that kind of thing, a content creation. Before it was like you had a few channels for TV, some for cable. There were less entertainment options, and then now there's trillions of videos on YouTube. So there is money coming to us content creators, but Google and YouTube got the bulk of the money because they brought it all together, the aggregation thing, and also the search and recommendation to say, here's the next good video, right? So that is where the value came. And it was going to what didn't change. What didn't change was economics was still the same. People were buying goods and services, and being able to match stuff up, however you're doing it, whether you're doing it with Facebook, whether you're doing it with Google, you're still getting as close as possible to some kind of transaction.
Right.
Money must change hands.
Matching
if it's all free, you're getting value. There's something there but that's different from the whole monetization economy.
Yeah.
So
matching buyers with sellers, consumers with providers. Yeah.
Right. So that's where we still have power. So we may have to change our job of what our purpose is, but ultimately is satisfying other people with money. Right. Also being friends with people and other kind of stuff. So you have to keep changing, adapting, because as all this change is happening, where the opportunity is to help solve something for people changes. So you have to be aware of like, what is the bottleneck this second? What is the thing today, this week, whatever, right? There will be things where things aren't perfect, right? It takes time and everyone working together to achieve that. So that goes to what has to change with economic and strategic responses. Um, so then we have to, you know, determine what insights need to be made, and then be proactive in as this all this stuff is changing. So then, in conclusion, is AI is heading towards surpassing human intellect. It's just a matter of when, but the path is undeniable, and the full transition. And again, the transition won't stop; it'll just keep going. But in terms of like the milestones that we talked about, as good as all humans, better than humans. The AGI, ASI definitions, the transition of making that fully available, even after it happens, could take 5 to 20 years. So you need to embrace the change and leverage AI's potential to thrive and win at all this change is happening. So that's basically where I want to conclude. If you have any questions there, Randy, or
Sure. So right now, what I hear a lot of is that you may not lose your job. The example I commonly use is my son, who works as a marketing individual for a very large company, and so his job is to turn out content. Prior to AGI, prior to AI rather, his job was to create the content. He's saying now his job is to know how to improve his speed and or the content using the tools that are now available.
Mhm.
So if he doesn't use those tools, if he doesn't learn to use the tools, he will lose. He will not have a job. Now that
Right.
might take, again, it might take 5 years. Maybe not at his company, but some company will still be using a human who turns out content without using AI. But
Mhm.
within a certain amount of time, that job will go away unless they're using AI to enhance their human capabilities. Now, this is no different than using email instead of mail, or using um, typewriters instead of pencils. There's always these great tools that come along to make us uh, more capable. This is kind of on a new level, of course, if we get to AGI, then where the tool is actually quote unquote smarter, or at least faster than a human on all tasks. So what is the solution at that point, Brian?
So you'll have to stay up with the state of the art. You have to also ask harder questions and ask them the right way in order to leverage it. And then you have to learn the new processes as fast as possible. It's a faster treadmill, and you just have to uh, work that. But the other thing would be to consider the bigger picture. Maybe it's not trying to hang on to a marketing job at company X to be as productive until they decide, okay, now we only need half as many, or 1/10 as many, or we at the company fail.
Right.
It will require being more active and aggressive to figure things out. So the winners would be those who own the most valuable stuff, which may mean that we have to be investors.
Uh-huh.
It also means that some things that were depreciating assets and expenses may not be depreciating assets and expenses anymore. If the car becomes a robotaxi, then becomes a vending machine, and becomes a revenue generation aspect.
Right.
If we have a humanoid robot and it can garden for us, then there's no reason why, I don't grow my own food because it's too much of a hassle, too much of a problem. But if you wanted to get rid of $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year worth of expenses and get it just to the cost of water and seed, then you could adopt something like that. And you can also work together with other people to do that. I personally think that if the economy grows 10 times, 100 times, then we could finally afford universal basic income, the UBI thing that Andrew Yang was talking about, where currently the economy is not sufficient to generate a proper UBI. But if you have AI increase the size of the economy, then you could do that. But if the political forces, business forces choose not to do that, we ourselves could approximate UBI, which goes to things like a kibbutz in Israel or other kind of communities where you and 100 friends, help provide services to each other. Currently, some people who do that have a massive drop in the quality of what they're delivering to each other.
Right.
But if I have AGI enhancement and I'm using open source AGI, like Mistral or whatever, Mistral, which is a French company making an open source AGI, that ranks 14th on the AGIs. It's as good as the second best Google system or something like that.
Wow.
So you can get it for free. So if everything's constantly improving on the AI side, then my open source AI will be as good as the one 6 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah.
Right. With the main system. So that could be a disadvantage, but for basic capabilities, I'm fine. And so the drop off in capability for a community of 100 people would be minimal. So if we can't get that at a national, global, regional, whatever level, at a community level, we could do that, and help each other with networking to find jobs, create businesses, and that kind of thing. But you want to get on offense. These are more defense moves, right? Which having complete independence, the whole laying off the grid, survivalist kind of thing, that could be at a high level, better than we have now, right? I could have my house perfectly fixed, all the plumbing stuff with the robot and that kind of stuff. So once this thing happens, there's no reason the fear of, I'm going to be starving on the street or something like that. Get your expenses down, get your debt out, and get the means to supply yourself. The AI can do everything for you, especially with robots. So there should be no reason to be in a hard way relative to where we are now. You may not be up to where the quadrillionaires could be in the future, but you were never up there anyway.
Right.
So nothing's changed.
Extremely wealthy, and you'll have time on your hands. So, Brian, I have speculated a little bit on this one myself, and my speculation for that one category for sure that probably is never going to go away is that people will always want to have other humans perform for them, no matter how good it is on YouTube, no matter how good it is in terms of AGI duplicating human creativity or human voices or all the rest. People will still love that actual human being performing in sports, performing in music, performing in art, etc. So I would see a world where we might have a tremendous percentage of the population involved in artistic endeavors, which that would be kind of a pleasant future to think about.
Yeah, that goes to what's really scarce.
Yes.
Like if I can robo create 1 million Marvel MCU movies, what is the value of that? Like I used to collect comics. When they would make 50 editions, all changing the cover and stuff like that of whatever the new comic was, that had it went up for a while, but then it crashed multiple times. That whole market collapsed because there was no true scarcity there.
Right.
So then they would go back to, Superman 1, the ones that actually had scarcity.
Yeah.
And then people could try and create forgeries and that kind of thing, but you'd be working towards what is truly scarce. And what could truly scarce is, like you say, performance. Right. But there's still Broadway shows, other things where you would want to have the human experience. That could become what is the scarce thing we value.
Right.
Because all that other stuff becomes Right now, like at my kids, they don't want to see AI generated YouTube.
Yeah.
They don't want to see the AI generated thumbnails.
Yeah.
It's pissing them off.
Yeah.
So that goes to, yes, it's great in terms of pure aesthetic quality or something like that. But then aesthetics change. You say, I'm sick of seeing that
Yeah.
because that's all I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. So we're looking for a very different age ahead of us. We're looking at something that is not going to be happening over centuries or even decades, but is really right upon us. So, Brian Wong, the scientist, Randy Kirk, not so much. We hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please hit like, please hit subscribe. And we had that video the other day that you might want to go check out that we did all about LK99. We'll make sure there's a card for that right here. Brian, fun as always.
Thanks, Randy.
And to all
See you
of you
later.
out there, have a great rest of your day.